You spoke to Rohingya women who are survivors of sexual violence. What did they tell you about what they experienced and about how rape is being used as a weapon against them?
I spent 3 days in Cox's Bazar meeting with survivors and witnesses of sexual violence. The stories they shared with me are simply heartbreaking, shocking and horrific. And they remind me basically of the dark memories of the genocide in Rwanda in terms of the level of hatred and the brutality of the sexual violence that they have undergone.
And you heard accounts of rape, of forced nudity and humiliation, as well as sexual slavery. Could you tell me more about who has been targeted in this way? Is it both women and children, girls under the age of 18?
The women and the young girls have been mainly targeted. Most of the women that I spoke to and the young girls reported rape, gang rape by multiple soldiers, sexual slavery. One woman told me how she was detained for 45 days. There's a lot of forced nudity in public. Women reported, I visited 4 camps. I visited the campsite in Kutupalong, in Uchiprang, Leda, and also the Konoparo border area. And I met women and girls who were very willing to talk to me. And they shared to me their stories, how, for example, in many villages, they were forced to strip and to lie down in the scorching sun outside their house. Their houses were torched and their husbands were asked to sign a document to the effect that they had burned down the houses. And they explained how in most cases it was the village leader who had to take the responsibility to sign those documents in order to prevent the gang rape and the mass rape from taking place. So there was a lot of humiliation which compounded the sexual violence that they went through. Many women and girls reported sexual violence, gang rape by multiple soldiers, but they also reported how they witnessed, for example, women and young girls, especially the very pretty ones, who were tied to rocks and trees and gang raped till death. That was very disturbing. What was also very disturbing, and it was very visible because the women were really clinging to their children, to their babies when they were talking to me. And they shared with me the stories of how babies had been thrown into the fire while mothers were being gang raped. And they also, it was interesting that they shared a pattern which started well beyond August. In terms of how there was a history of persecution. They were tortured, they were arrested and detained and tortured for having a cell phone. They were not allowed to communicate with the outside world. Their water was often
shocking and horrific accounts that you've heard. Earlier this week, you heard from the Myanmar army. It says that it's completely exonerated. It is clear of any wrongdoing, that it targets terrorists. So these accounts of rape of young girls, of women, does that undercut this argument that we've heard from the Myanmar military?
I wanted to go to Myanmar. I wanted to have a constructive dialogue with the government officials to extend the support of my office for legislative reform, for accountability issues, but my request was turned down. What I can tell you is that all the accounts from the girls, from the women, from the witnesses corroborate one thing, that all the sexual violence, all the atrocities were committed by the army, armed forces of Myanmar. This is the information that I have from the mouths of the survivors and the witnesses.
And you are taking this information straight to the International Criminal Court. Will Myanmar be held accountable for these atrocities, and when?
Listen, we have to understand when we talk about the International Criminal Court that it is the Rome Statute of the ICC was premised on a system of complementarity, which means that it is the primary responsibility of the government to bring perpetrators to justice. It is the national authorities that have the primary jurisdiction. It is only when the national authorities are unwilling or unable to act in such situation that the ICC jurisdiction can be triggered. So it is a court of last resort. So in the case of Myanmar, which is not a party to the Rome Statute, what can happen? There cannot be a preliminary investigation by the ICC unless there is a referral by the United Nations Security Council. And we have precedent. I mean, in the past, we have the example of Sudan, Darfur of 2005 or Libya in 2011, where the United Nations Security Council referred these situations of concern to the ICC.